Hello and welcome back to Mountaintop Media. We are recapping Tuesday's Reading City Council meeting where they voted for the new mayor who will be mayor for the next year. That meeting and that conversation took about an hour of the meeting. And so I want to play a clip from the conversation because I think we've seen a lot over the last year during meetings and a lot of behaviors. And I think we've had people really show us who they are over this last year. And so a lot of those concerns were brought up and a lot was exposed during this hour. So we're going to play a couple clips actually, but the first clip that I want to play for you is Tanessa reaching out and saying, I am not comfortable with the level of transparency and the behavior of Mike Littell that he has shown trying to shut down conversation and not be transparent and some of his behaviors. So I'm going to go ahead and play that clip. And I really want you guys, every time I'm doing one of these meeting recaps, I really want you guys making your own decisions. I would really love it if you would read the agenda and go to the meetings. But I am happy to recap the meetings, make it shorter, make it easier. And I will say, going through Reading City Council's website and recapping the meetings to get screen recordings is a pain. I don't know what server they're using or what system, but it is always buffering and there are a lot of errors. So you will see the audio doesn't match up very well. So it's not super easy. If you went to the meetings, it would be easy in person. So I am happy to recap, but I do want you guys to see kind of how this played out. So here's the first clip of her concerns and then what she thought.
So I will be voting against that for absolutely trust issues. And we're not in unison up here. There is major violations of trust that have happened. And I was hoping not to have that be discussed up here over and over, or to have to drag that through the press.
Right.
As the leader of the council.
Right.
So it's for that reason that I make the motion that we actually make a decision that we should have made last year for an order that is aligned with tradition, which is highest vote getter and in that order. I think it does restore some level of trust, and we're not in unison up here. This will not be a 5-0 vote. And it's not like it's, never going to work, but I do think that time and rebuilding of trust can happen, but it's not going to happen when there has been constant demonstrations of not allowing people to speak, of trying to shut down conversation. On several occasions, I've been admonished up here that I shouldn't ask questions from this dais by Councilmember Littell. So I don't think we're going to actually move into a new era where we're actually discussing more. We have more transparency. We have more questions being asked. We're actually encouraging more participation from the public, and we're rebuilding that trust that's been lost. I don't think that that's going to happen because it hasn't been. I'm going to reiterate that I think that we should put the order in the order that it should have been from the beginning, and take the opportunity to take some time over the next year to just rebuild the budget and rebuild relationships up here. And I don't think that that's going to happen when you have the person leading who's been doing that very undermining these things. So that's my concern. And I've had no indication, apology, or movement towards moving towards more open discussion. That hasn't happened. So for that reason, I won't be voting with that if that's the decision that you decide to second.
Are you willing to entertain any other combination?
Sure.
Are you willing to, I'm now going to play a game of Disney Yahtzee. because the gentlemen have few words tonight. But are you willing to entertain another sort of makeup? So whether that's Lataw, Danuka, Resner, or whether that's Resner, Lataw, Danuka, or whether that's I should have taken the time to write these out before I thought about all of the ways you could combine our names.
I'm the reason that I am nominating. Basically, for me, the options are Mike or Dr. Paul, because that's exactly who I had nominated the first time. So I'm being consistent with the order that I think should be there based on vote getting. I did it the same way before. So my I think that should have been set. And since if you're not running next year, that moves Mike back up, and that means he's the mayor next year. And I wouldn't object to that. But I don't think that this year, for what we have to do, I just believe that for the public's sake, for our sake, we need leadership that's going to let people speak, especially up here. And he's shared in being shut down the way that I've been shut down in these discussions and in these debates on very, very important issues, specifically the budget, which we will be doing all year. And so in an effort to just do a better job of actually getting to solutions, I think we should have somebody that isn't going to demonstrate that. And so I haven't seen Paul do that. I've seen the, so that's why I'm putting that forward. Whether or not you want to be the mayor pro tem or the vice mayor or vice versa, I mean, I'm open to whatever, but either way, it does make Mike the mayor next year, which I would not object to.
Okay, I have.
So I fully agree. I think he had a big part in shutting down a lot of the conversation about the transparency in the budget. And he went as far as to, with Aaron Resner, make a video series where they kind of talked down to the community and oversimplified the budget, telling everybody that there was no problem. After Measure A didn't pass, Erin kind of changed her tune and was like, oh, yes, I've been saying the whole time there's issues with the budget. So had those conversations been allowed to happen and Tanessa not be shut down every step of the way, I think that we would have seen some differences in things getting taken care of where we had a truly transparent budget presentation. Instead, Jack Munn says she's not allowed to present her PowerPoint, and everybody kind of just shut her down. And so we went into that election with very, very low opinions of and trust in the city council itself and city staff, which I think is a huge part of why Measure A failed. So that, is my opinion. You could agree or disagree, but that's what I thought. But after she makes that motion, I think that it's really kind of interesting how the conversation goes. Again, if you want to go back and watch the whole thing, feel free. But I really want to cut over to Dr. Danuka's response and the speech that he gives. And then a couple of the conversations that happen after that. And then we'll be right back.
This is going to be difficult for whosoever does it, as I said earlier. I'm happy and ready to do it, but at the same time, I do want to make sure that we have a lot of, there is no perfect decision. No one has a crystal ball. So I want to make sure that we have as much, if not unanimity, at least as much support as we have possible. So I would say that clearly, Tanessa, I really thank you and I respect your nominating me for mayorship, and I honor that, and I really thank you for that. And I'm willing and ready to do it. But at the same time, I do see that Jack and Aaron want to make sure that it's Mike's vice mayor being vice mayor, his turn next year. So I'm sure he will do a good job also. And I'm completely fine with that. perhaps we can compromise with, it's your call. If you want to do this, it's yours. If you want me to do it, I'll do it. I'm talking with Mike. But if you do it, and I can be the vice mayor, and Erin can be pro tem, that may be a happy compromise for most of us. That's my take on this, Mike. It's up to you.
Can I ask a couple of questions? I'm really sorry. I know I said I wanted to hear from you. Now I'm interrupting, so I'm going to acknowledge that. Do you genuinely feel like you have the time to be mayor? Because I understand that you make time for the things in which that you care about, so let me acknowledge that. But I also want to say that even Jack, I think, a year ago when he was put into mayor position, did not know, oh, darn, I'm getting all of these extra meetings, which have been a thing in which that you've communicated, I think, to all of us, how difficult that is in your schedule to have meetings in the middle of the day, or to, it is usually a difficulty to be scheduling all of our extra meetings or additional meetings and budget meetings around your current calendar. And so I agree with both of you. Whomever sits in this position is going to need to allocate extra time and direction. And I hear what you're saying about public trust. But I also think that the mayor's job is to conduct a meeting, to know when we're opening a public hearing and when we're closing a public hearing. It is to know what the rules of order are and who goes first and who goes second. And we have incredible help all of the time, because sometimes, like we will see later, when we have ordinances and we open and close public hearings, we need guidance. But if I was to say a member of the council, not whose heart was necessarily the best, but a member of council who had the most amount of time to give to this, that isn't Dr. Danuka, who I think that he probably is self-aware enough to be able to say that. Make sure that whomever we pick, Jack's retired, so maybe I should have said Jack again. But I want to make sure that we're picking somebody who can lead a meeting, because as a person who's experienced lots of different types of mayors, those mayors that can be efficient and lead a meeting really well and understand what is happening and moves to make really is just helpful at moving the process along. Now you could speak. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Do you want him to answer?
Oh, about the time. Oh, time is not an issue, because as a doctor, I've been trained to work 24/7, 48 hours. And
I know, but you can't schedule a surgery.
But time is not an issue. I make a commitment when I only make a commitment which I can keep.
Okay.
That is not an issue. But it's completely Mike's call, and I will defer completely to Mike. And I can tell you that I absolutely will support if Mike is mayor and I'm vice mayor, I completely support him in making sure that this meeting is run in a very different way.
I mean, looking back over the year, I would say, looking at all five of us are very qualified. We're talented. We bring things to the table of different perspective that, and I've enjoyed every bit of the conversation, even in the contention and the disagreement. Regardless of what happens today, who's chosen, I think there's a common theme that we do want to build back trust. And I can say, certainly, I've said things over the past year that I didn't always feel good when I went home. I think we've all done things and said things that just felt ugly at the moment. And I'm always committed to trying to bridge the gaps with relationships, even when they feel ugly, they feel messy. It's important to me to keep working on that stuff. And I think for the whole council here, we should all be working towards that with each other, even in moments of disagreement when it just feels like we really can't get along. And I'm committed to continue to do that and apologize when I'm wrong, and just be open to any conversation, as we do have a lot to work on as a council. So moving forward, my perspective is if you're saying it's my call, I'm ready. I'm willing to do this. I feel confident in my abilities. I think we're all capable, and again, if we're all committing forward to work on improving relationships and to work together, even in disagreement, I think that's just an important theme that we should all be focused on, regardless of how the decision's made today. So,
Jack?
Yeah, well, I'm ready to vote.
Yep.
Well, I'll make the motion of Latah, Danuka, and Bresner. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I will make my motion for Danuka, Resner, Latah.
Okay, the last one first. No second for that one? Well, we take the last one first, so we,
Well,
You don't have a second.
yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't heard a second so far to any of the motions.
well,
that have
we
been
were
made.
going to, well, I made a motion and she made a second motion.
But we didn't get a second to your motion.
there's
We
no
didn't get a
voting.
second to her
Oh, I see,
motion.
okay.
Voting
Yeah.
So we need a second
to
on one of the
either
motions.
one. To either one.
To both, either.
Can I repeat what I believe the motions have been?
So first off, I've got to say that Dr. Danuka is one of the kindest, sweetest, most generous men that I know. He stood with us during COVID. He stands up for what he believes in. And I think all in all, he's a great guy. However, and I have said this to him, I will continue to say it to him, we have a problem where apathy is leading to the demise of our country. We have a movement of ideology that is coming in and ripping out the core of what our country was founded on and all of the moral basis of how our government operates. And it is people who are apathetic, people who want to sit back and, be nice about things, people that want to take the easy way out, that are causing our country to fall to this crazy, I almost want to say tyrannical ideology that's destroying our country from within. And it's insane. And so that being said, I think Dr. Danuka's speech was very apathetic. I think that it, for me, was extremely disappointing. I wish that I would have been at the meeting live. I wish that I would have been watching live online. I did not actually get to hop on because my kid had a basketball game. So I did not get to hop on to the meeting until right after this vote was had. So I'm extremely disappointed because I wasn't able to let anybody that was there know or engage there in person to have a say or, just kind of respond, let him see my face or, not that I think that I have a lot of pull or way, but sometimes when people see that maybe there's another way to think about it, they might second guess a decision that they make. So I really wish that I would have been there. And so I feel a lot of regret not being there. But him saying, well, this is how things always are, so this is what we should do, I completely disagree with. Mike's next in line, so we need to give it to him. This is why our city is in the issue that it's in. It's why it's having the problem that it's having. When we continue to do the same things we've always done, we're not going to see different results. And Tanessa brought up very valid points for why she had reservations with Mike Littell and his position. And if you watch his comments and his, Mr. Positivity, oh, everybody's great, everybody's wonderful. But if you watch it and listen, there's some jabby comments in there. And then if you watch the rest of the meeting, he says things because she had made a comment about not having trust there and there being broken trust. And so every vote that happened throughout the meeting, he was like, building trust. And he said it positive and like lighthearted, but it came off. And I think based on what I've seen, that the intention was very pointed. And I think that it was just very childish, immature, and rude. you're not building trust. In fact, that behavior showed that exactly what her concerns were valid. And this is going to be a very interesting year, because if you're going to keep up that behavior, I hope people start calling you out on it, because that was very childish and it was not okay. And Aaron called out Dr. Danuka and said that, you know, he may not have the time for the position of mayor. And so she didn't know, you know, where she sat on that. And he did defend it and say, when I make a commitment, I make a commitment and I will be there. So he says he has the time, but then says he'll defer to Mike and make this Mike's decision. And I just feel like you've seen that somebody failed. You have somebody going to bat for you and fighting for you to be in that position. That position was rightfully yours after the last election, and you deferred and said you would rather wait. And now you're deferring again. We elected you to be a leader. And I understand that you had great intentions and you're doing it to be a nice guy, but there are times where being the nice guy is not what we need. And this is one of those. So I am extremely disappointed. And I know, based on the comments and the messages that I've been getting, that other people feel the same way. The time for being the nice guy is over. And so I really hope that as this plays out and we see again that Tanessa was right and his behavior is terrible, and you will be vice mayor, which you don't actually get to say, because at one point you make a comment about, I will help ensure that meetings are ran differently. Well, you're vice mayor. You don't actually get a say. Mike Littell is going to decide how those meetings are ran, and he will have a final say no matter what input or say you have. And you're not going to have that control. If you wanted to have that control and make that promise of meetings will be ran differently, you probably should have taken the position of mayor. So, like I said, go back and watch the entire meeting if you want to see how everything played out. But based on these two clips, I think you guys see a good chunk of how things were done and just the chaos that's been happening the whole last year. Like, motions are made, nobody makes a second, nobody has a clue what's going on. Everybody's kind of, and staff is like, well, this was the motion made. Well, this was the motion made. And this is what, and Tanessa has to point out, like, no second was made to any of those. And it just has been the biggest hot mess of a council that I've ever witnessed. So hopefully, you know, as we talk more about things that are coming, there is supposed to be an onboarding training for all of the city council members, but also any new city council member coming on. And I hope part of that is, this is how we conduct a meeting, and this is some of the protocol, and this is how things function, because it's a hot mess. And so at points it's laughable. And I really would like to have a much more positive commentary on what's happening at the city of Reading, but it's such a mess. So we really need at least 2 good qualified candidates to run in 2026. Really, really, really need them. And then I hope, she has not announced or said specifically, but I really hope that Tanessa chooses to rerun so that we have her and we can get her 2 really good people to be on council with her. So that's my feeling. Everybody might be different. I am trying to be as middle of the road and just reporting the facts as I see them, so that you can go do your own research and make decisions. But I really want you guys to know what's going on and become more involved. So there was also a presentation on ADUs, additional dwelling units, and what that looks like as far as what the requirements are and what we're going to allow. There were some changes made at the state. And there was some conversation that I thought was interesting where our limitations were actually more restrictive than the state. And Tanessa kind of pushed back on that a little, but was overall shut down, and they were going to go with staff recommendations. And so I just think that it is crazy that in the city of Reading, we are going to be more restrictive than the state regulations. because the state regulation says that it is under 1,200 square feet, and City of Reading is 1,000. I think that they did make a caveat or like a change to it to kind of appease the concerns from public comment, and they made it 1,250 feet. No, 1,025 feet, which put it over. Yeah, 1,025 feet, which put it over the minimum for financing, but it was not enough to be less restrictive than the state. So it's just over 1,000 square feet maximum size. But again, go back and double check that and look at that. But I'm almost 100% that that's what was decided and agreed upon. So then there was a presentation on the transients at the hotels. So this was an informational discussion or an informational presentation that then there was discussion on what to bring back. And so based on the presentation, there were multiple hotels that are housing parolees and transients, and they are doing that within certain scopes, but not always following the ordinances that are already in place. So there's a lot of these organizations that are out of compliance. One of them got up during public comment and made comments about all the good they're doing, but then kind of within his own comment pointed out that maybe they're not doing as much good, or there's more to the story than what there is. And there is a history of maybe some accountability being held with that organization in the city. And so we are bringing back this item. And after discussion across the council, they want to have very strict limitations. They want to make sure that they are not doing a dual occupancy where they have members of the public who are coming through town that are staying there vacation-wise or whatnot for travel, staying in the same place that is using it for this type of alternative housing or intermittent housing. And they also want to just make sure that the ordinances that are in place and any ordinances that we choose to establish are being followed and followed to the letter of the law. So really, I do think across the board, this is a concern for everybody. And I hope that we see it get cleaned up. The next thing was the audit committee. They were voting on what that would look like and how that would be done. Ultimately, it sounded like what we are going to do is have 2 members that are appointed by the mayor and vice mayor that they get to decide what those parameters are. But I think the overall input was it needs to be people that know what they're doing and what they're talking about, who will sit on that board for say on auditing the finances and the budget. So that will be a 2-member committee that will be coming. And then the finance committee will be 5 members where every person on the council gets to pick a member and they get to appoint who that person is. And Tanessa was arguing like we should have people who know what they're doing come in and meet with these committees and give them information and present to them people who are very well known in their fields for being accurate and doing a good job, like Nolda Short from the county. And so each person will get to appoint 1 member of that finance committee. So we will see that in those appointments happening soon. Reading City Council is a mess. There is no nice way to say that. going into this year. I don't know if it's going to get better, if it's going to be more transparent. I hope that we are putting the things into play. But I can tell you, if we don't do something different, we will not see different results. So we need to run two quality candidates who will go up against any establishment candidate that wants business as usual to be conducted, that will ask the hard questions, that will put in the time, who will not just be nice to try to make everybody get along. That is a very noble effort, and I think that it's great. And I think that running on that and having some, I'm not going to feed into the negativity, I'm not going to cause division, further division, I'm not going to spark fights just to spark fights, is noble. But you need to know what those boundaries are, because there is a time to push back and there is a time to stand up. And so we need two people who will run, hopefully Tanessa decides to rerun. And we need at least two very good candidates who will come onto this council and say, we are done with status quo. We are done with the direction the city council has been headed. We are done with the direction the city has been heading. And we want to see a very beautiful, wonderful city that has so much good to offer be thriving and doing the best that it possibly can. And that is not happening under the current city council. So we need two very qualified candidates who want to run. So if you are a member of this community who want to see Reading get back on track and you are interested, please reach out. I would love to put you in contact with the right people to set you up for success in a campaign. That being said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you get something out of these recaps. And there was also a special board meeting on the evening of December 4th. I will play clips from that and break down what happened on that as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Shasta County, and have a wonderful evening.